also pause that or you'll hear duplicates of things. So wait, give it a second. Yeah, pause
right
there.
there.
Yep. You're good.
And then
You're live.
now to go, I have to change this to
I usually leave
tribal
like that for a
chat.
few minutes until people get in and then change it over to Tribecast, yeah.
Tribe cat.
But this is where the chat will be.
Oh, so I can see it.
Yep.
Well, this ought to be interesting.
I'll come in and finish early.
This ought to be interesting. Good morning. Good morning, Kelvin. How the heck are you, man? Happy Sunday. This ought to be interesting. I've never done this by myself, so if there's screw-ups and chaos, my apologies. It won't be unexpected. Good morning, Dragon. Okay, let's see if I can start this here for Tribecast. Okay, good morning. It is just me this morning, and it'll be a little bit different. Mystic is working, and I have an appointment with an herbalist for the first time at 12:30. So it'll be a little bit different, a little bit short, and I'll wait a moment, and then I'll get started. Good morning, Shar. Welcome. So this ought to be funny. I mean, I hope it works. Just let me know if you can't see or hear me. Oh, Wonder Woman. Yeah, I saw that. Was that good? I also saw one time you were watching Buffy, which is one of my favorite series ever. Good deal. Good deal. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for stopping by. Like I said, be a little bit different. Mystic is working, and I have an appointment for an herbalist, so it'll be a little bit different today. But one thing that had been coming up for me a lot was shape-shifting, and it was, of course, came up in the book I'm reading, Werewolf Magic, and then in a study that Mystic and I were working on yesterday for our full moon ritual we did last night. The topic was shape-shifting and skin turning. And so what better example like to discuss or talk about or read about than Caradwyn and her cauldron. That was pretty much all about transformation, shape-shifting, skin turning. I mean, she literally wanted to add something or modify her son, Afagdu, who was ugly, into being the wisest person on earth, and how that backfired, and a chase ensued. And throughout that chase, Caradwyn and Gwion Bach, the tender of her cauldron, both transformed and shape-shifted and made it through the story. So I think as humans, we have to shape-shift a lot. We have to modify, we have to adjust ourselves, whether it's to learn more skills for a job, to fight or flight in the situation we're in. I mean, just on an everyday basis. So I'm not aware of any actual shape-shifting. Maybe some of you are, and that's great. But to me, it's more of a symbolic thing that we use as a tool to get through our life. So I do have some examples or stories from a really good book, From the Cauldron Born by Christopher Hughes, and also a version of Caradwyn's story in Celtic Totem Animals. It's a card deck, but this is by John Matthews. So we'll be a little shorter, a little bit different today. Please feel free to discuss while I'm reading. I'll try to look over and see any questions or comments. But good morning, happy Sunday, and welcome. So the first version from the Cauldron Born is called The Tale of Gwion Bach. This story is the story of Gwion Bach that is most prevalent in Wales. In the days of Arthur, a nobleman lived in the land that today is called Penllyn. His name was Tegid Foel. I apologize for any mispronunciations. His name was Tegid Foel, and his homestead, according to the story, was a body of water known today as Llyn Tegid. And the story says that he also had a wife, and to her was given the name Ceridwen. And she, so says the tale, was learned in the three crafts, which are known as magic, witchcraft, and divination. Also, the tale says that Tegid and Ceridwen had a son whose looks, shape, and form were terribly ugly. They named him Morfrin, meaning sea crow, but owing to his ugliness, they eventually called him Afagdu, which translated to utter darkness. Because of their son's wretchedness, his mother became very sad in her heart, for there was no obvious means by which her son would win acceptance among the most learned men of the day unless he beheld qualities markedly different from his looks. And so to deal with this matter, she turned her thoughts towards her craft to see how best she could make him in possession of the prophetic spirit and a great storyteller of the world to come. After much laboring, she discovered that there was such a way of bestowing upon him such knowledge by using the powers of the herbs of the earth and the effort of a human. This is what she must do: gather certain herbs and plants of the earth upon certain days and hours, and to cast them all in a cauldron of water, and then to arrange the cauldron upon a fire. This had to be warmed continuously in order to boil the cauldron night and day for as long as a year and a day. Within this allotted time, she would see that 3 drops of all the multitude of herbs would spring forth. And upon whichever man they fail, she would see that he would be all-knowing in all arts and full of the prophetic spirit. She would also see that the remaining liquid of the herbs, except for the 3 drops which came before, shall be the most powerful poison that there could be in the world, and this shall cause her cauldron to shatter and spill its poison upon the earth. Now this story is against reason and contrary to faith and piety, but the body of the story tells how she did collect great numbers of herbs of the earth, these with which she put into the cauldron of water and placed upon a fire. The story says that she took an old blind man to stir the cauldron and to tend it, but it says nothing of his name any more than it tells us who the author of the tale is. But it does tell us the name of the boy who led the old man, Gwion Bach, he who Ceridwen set the task to stoke the fire beneath the cauldron. In this manner, each kept to his task, tending the fire and stirring the cauldron, whilst Ceridwen kept it full of water and herbs until the end of a year and a day. At that time, Ceridwen took her son, Morfrin, and placed him close to the cauldron to receive the drops when their hour of readiness arrived for them to leap out of the cauldron. In that time, Ceridwen set her haunches down to rest. In that time she happened to sleep. And during that time the 3 amazing drops leapt from the cauldron, these which fell on Gwion Bach, who had pushed Morfrin out of the way. And at that the cauldron let out a scream, and owing to the poison it shattered. At that Ceridwen awoke from her slumber and was enraged to see Gwion, who was filled with knowledge. Gwion, in his wisdom, sensed her temper was poisonous, and that she intended to destroy him totally as soon as she discovered how he had deprived her son of the remarkable drops. At this, he took to his feet and fled, Caradwin, upon recovering from her madness, inquired of her son, and thus discovered how Gwion had driven him away from that place she had stationed him. On knowing this, she ran from the house like a madman in pursuit of Gwion Bach. And it is said that she saw him run in the shape of a hare. So, Gwion Bach, that's important, starts the chase out as a hare. Because of this, she turned herself into a black greyhound bitch and followed him here and there. After a lengthy pursuit, Gwion tired and became a salmon in water. Caradwin gave chase in the form of an otter bitch. In pursuit, the chase took to air, Gwion as a bird and she as a hawk. After a long pursuit in many shapes, she chased him so hard he was forced to enter a barn where a great tower of winnowed wheat stood. And in this manner, he became a grain of wheat. Caradwin, unrelented, turned herself into a black tufted or crested hen. And as the tale tells, she pecked and swallowed Gwion into her belly. And there she carried him for 9 months, when after which time she delivered him forth. When she looked upon that child who entered the world, she did not have within her heart the ability to do him physical harm, nor permit any other in her sight to harm him. In the end, she had made a coracle, or skin belly, which would fit around the babe entirely. This she cast into the lake. Some say that it was a river, whilst other books say she put him to sea. He was found a long time afterwards, as this present work will show in good course. At this point, the writer pursues further histories of the British Isles. Okay. So that is one version of the tale. And in others, he always starts as a hare, and then there's some versions where he ends as a hare, which is sacred to the Druids. And starting and ending as a hare, which was the first tale of the Easter Bunny. Good morning. Hey, Mystic Manny. We're just talking about shape-shifting, skin turning, and transformation. It's a short session today. My Mystic has to work, and then I have to go see an herbalist. So it's just something different, something short, but we wanted to say hello and good morning, and thanks everybody for coming. So we're talking about Caradwin and her cauldron. Are there any ways you all transform like weekly? I think having to have a mundane job and not one of magical nature, I almost have to shapeshift somewhat every morning when I go to work. And this is also the first time I'm doing this, so if you cannot hear me or see me, just let me know. It wouldn't be shocking. All right, another version of Caradwin and her cauldron we found in our Celtic Totem Animals Guidebook, Working with Shamanic Helpers by John Matthews. And in this version, this one is entitled The Story... Thanks, Kelvin. The Story of Taliesin. It's really kind of a test stream for me to make sure I can run it. We definitely change weekly so that our bodies and cells. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We want to get Mystic Manny on here. So the story of Taliesin. In the time of the warrior Arthur, there lived in the region of Bala a nobleman named Tegid the Bald. His wife, who was named Caradwin, was greatly skilled in the magical arts. Tegid and Caradwin had 2 children. The first was called Morfran, or Great Crow, but he was so ugly that he became known by another name, Afagdu, or Utter Darkness. It is said that anyone who saw him fled in terror at his appearance and could not bear to be in his company. The other child was a daughter whose name was Creary, meaning Dear One. She was as fair as Morfran was dark, and everyone who saw her fell in love with her at once. Caradwin knew that her daughter would never lack for suitors who would care for her and offer her every gift she needed. But she also knew that her son would never be accepted in the world because of his hideous looks. And so she cast about for a way to empower him with wisdom, for she knew that people will always listen to the words of the wise, whatever their appearance. So she resolved to boil a cauldron of inspiration and wisdom according to the books of the Feferilt. I cannot say that. F-F-E-R-Y-L-L-T. Feferilt. And the method of it was this. First, she must gather particular herbs on certain days and at certain hours and put them in the cauldron, which must then be kept boiling for a year and a day, until 3 drops of almond, that is inspiration, were obtained. Oh, cool. I know a lot about shape-shifting in the astral. I've got to talk to you about that. That sounds very interesting, Dragon. For the task of maintaining the fire beneath the cauldron, Caradwin chose an old blind man named Morda, who was led by a youth named Gwion Bach, the son of Grang of Lanfair, Carrianon, and Powys. Again, I apologize for butchering these words and names. At the end of the year, Caradwin stationed herself with her son close by the cauldron, and there she fell asleep. And while she slept, it happened that 3 drops flew out of the cauldron and landed on the thumb of Gwion Bach. And so great was the pain therefrom that he put his thumb in his mouth and sucked it. Right? Like when we burn our thumb. At once he knew all there was to know, and foremost of that knowledge was that Caradwin would destroy him as soon as she learned what had happened. And thus he fled. But the cauldron gave a great cry and cracked in 2, and the waters flowed from it into a nearby stream and poisoned some horses that were used to drink there. For other than the 3 drops, the contents of the cauldron were the bitterest gall. Poison. Now Caradwin awoke, and when she saw what had occurred, her anger knew no bounds. She struck old blind Morda so hard that one of his eyes fell out on his cheek, but he cried out that she had injured him wrongly. Then Caradwin took counsel and listened to her own inner wisdom, and so she knew all that had occurred and went in pursuit of Gwion, running. With his newly acquired knowledge, the boy was aware of her and changed himself into the semblance of a hare. There's the hare again, first, thinking to outrun her. But she, perceiving that, turned herself into the semblance of a black greyhound, and was as swift as he. Then Gwion came to a river, and leaped into it and became a fish. And Caradwin pursued him then as an otter bitch, until he felt her teeth snapping at his tail, and so leaped from the water and turned himself into a bird of the air. But Caradwin became a hawk and pursued him there. Then, in fear for his life, Gwion saw from his vantage point in the heavens a heap of winnowed wheat on the floor of a barn, and dropping amongst them, he turned himself into one of the grains. But Caradwin knew every pattern of his mind, and so she turned herself into a black red-crested hen, and scratched at the grain until she found one seed that was Gwion and swallowed it down. And wonder of wonders, it went into her womb so that she became quickened and bore Gwion in her womb for 9 months. Excuse me. At the end of that time, she gave birth to a child who was so fair and beautiful that she could not bear to kill him, as she had planned to do, or to have another kill him for her. So she took thought for a while, and then took the child and placed it in a leather bag, which she let adrift on the sea on the day of Calan Gaeth, October the 31st. And Caradron watched as the bag was borne out to sea beyond the 9th wave. And this is when, a man later found him and named the baby Taliesin. So I kind of think, notice just in this story, and I know this is just one story, but like the magical person or character in here was a woman. The magical person was Caradron. Like none of the men bear magical qualities, so kind of makes me wonder, in this Welsh legend, Welsh lore, if the females were considered as the initiators or the powerful ones. This book is actually really good. It's a whole year and a day study from the Cauldron Born of the tale of Caradron and her cauldron, the source of sacred transformation. Have any of you read this book, or do you have this book? All right. It has so many versions of the story and exercises that are actually really neat. I haven't been through all of them. I've only been through a portion of them, but it's really good. But you got to really be in the mind to do shadow work, or in that mindset to want to do it, to get anything out of it. Yeah. All right. So the last version I will read or go over is called The Tale of the Prophet, the Witch, and the Cauldron. Excuse me, I might have lit too much frankincense there. Goodness gracious. Once upon a time there lived a nobleman called Tegid Foel, so named because not a single hair grew upon his head. His home stood upon the shores of a great lake near the ancient town of Bala in North Wales. Tegid was betrothed to a powerful and wise witch by the name of Caradron, a woman both feared and revered for her powers and her abilities to enchant or curse. The couple were blessed by the fairest of daughters, perhaps the most beautiful maiden to have ever lived, and she was aptly named Crefyr, meaning the finest. The heads of all men would turn as she passed by, the sparkle in their eyes betraying the lust they had harbored for her deliciousness. Oh, well, it's definitely doing it. Ah, it's definitely doing it then, Manny. Oh, I shouldn't have put so many little pellets on. But a curse must have been placed upon Caradwyn's womb, for her son, named Morfin, meaning sea crow, was, alas, the ugliest man to have ever lived. Excuse me, I'm going to turn this fan on. I put too much. I'm just turning for too much frankincense.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I didn't mean to.
Jesus.
I didn't mean to. I didn't know the. I didn't know the charcoal was loaded. Holy.
You still reading a story?
Yes, I'm on my last version.
Okay.
Y'all finished? Would you like to say hello? I told them it's a shorter stream today. Okay, let me get back to it. Sorry, y'all. His ugliness was such that his mother... Jesus. Can we open a window? I'm so sorry. So unprofessional. Oh my God. That did not go out well. I will not ever do that again.
Did you turn the fan off?
Yes.
You should be turning it on.
It was blowing it back to me. In my face. Sorry, y'all. That was very unprofessional. His ugliness was such that his mother, in despair, renamed him Afagdu, meaning utter darkness.
Manny is right. If you can't breathe, the frankincense is doing its job.
Oh, yes.
Of course
But
they're mowing.
as any mother, she loved and adored her child and wished nothing but greatness for him. But Afagdu was shunned by the community, for his countenance was of such ugliness that most found his appearance abhorrent, and would serve to avoid him at all costs. Oh.
Ooh. Shit.
Woo. In desperation, Caradwyn fathomed that if he was wise, he would gain the respect of the community and be amongst the learned folk. That somehow his ugliness would be compensated by the abilities of his mind. The nobility would adore him and see beyond his countenance and learn to love him as his family did. Have you all ever known someone that ugly? That's not nice. Apparently they were kind of like more mean back then.
I lived with one.
What? That's ugly?
Iris.
Oh.
Oh, you were thinking you.
Yes,
How rude.
that's me. See how he did me, y'all?
I would never.
Caradwyn, being a wise, powerful magician, learned in the three sacred arts of magic, witchcraft, and divination, prepared a plan that would free her son of his appalling countenance. And in her wisdom, she contemplated her dilemma and consulted the sacred book of the Feralt, the great ancient magicians who were the watchers of the other world. These magicians, the keepers of magic and science, once lived in a magical fort in the mountains of Snowdonia, but had vanished into the west. Within her surviving grimoire, she discovered a spell to brew a magical substance that, when ingested, would impart all the wisdom and knowledge of the worlds upon the recipient. The brew of Alwyn, the divine flowing spirit of inspiration, would take time, devotion, and care in its creation. Such was Caradwyn's determination. She set out to collect the herbs and materials required. The land about the lake was abundant in herbs and plants of magical qualities, and she took to her task with optimism and a smile, confident that her son would soon be free of the chains that bound him. She had a great cauldron made of the finest cast iron, the likes of which had never been seen. The cauldron was set upon a roaring fire that would burn for a year and a day. Night and day the flames would lick the cauldron's belly, warming the brew. She employed a blind man named Morta to stroke the fire and keep its hunger for wood at bay, and Gwion Bach to stir its contents. Oh, I didn't know that, Kelvin. The Ugly Duckling was a banned book?
It is a banned book.
Who's banning them, I wonder?
Rhonda.
Is
Satanist.
she? Why would they ban the books? What's their reason? This seems like a good place to ask.
Control.
But I mean, what's the reason they're giving that they're banning the books? I feel bad I haven't paid more attention, but that is sad.
Well, banned books have been a thing since, God, the beginning of time. 1984 was a banned book.
Mm. So I want to look more into that. For the duration of a year and a day, Caradwin worked relentlessly, gathering the sacred herbs and fungi from the banks of the blessed lake. Into the great cauldron they were cast, its magic rising with every ingredient, its song emanating from the depths and origination of the universe. As the appointed time arrived, Caradwin in her exhaustion took to slumber beneath the trees. Her work was done, and time would now dictate the readiness of the brew. Oh. Controlling the population and then some. Yeah, that's sad. But whilst she slept, the brew boiled with great rapidness, and cracks appeared about the cauldron's belly. Gwion Bach approached the cauldron curiously, at which point the brew in its fury expelled 3 sacred drops. Alas! The boiling liquid hastily descended onto the edge of Gwion Bach's thumb. Its heat seared the flesh, and instinctively he raised it to his mouth, plunging the scalded flesh onto the coolness of his tongue. The cauldron, as if anticipating the coming events, sighed heavily. Birds became silent. The waves of the great lake fell motionless, and the world held its breath. Oh my God. In an instant, Gwion's eyes turned black. All the wisdom, knowledge, and sciences of the worlds, both seen and unseen, rushed into his being. The whites of his eyes vanished beneath the power of such knowledge. The dark pits of his eyes transforming into pools of nothingness that yet contained the potential for all things to spring into being. The cauldron's sigh rose into that of a scream. Its cracks became chasms, and in a mighty explosion it ruptured, sending shards of cast iron and boiling liquid into the 4 corners of the world. I'm liking this version much better. Its remaining liquid, now more poisonous than the berries of all the yews in all the world, flowed silently into the watercourse. Horses and cattle along the river's banks died so quickly that their eyes remained open, their corpses silent sentinels of the transformative and destructive powers of the cauldron. Gwion, imbued with universal wisdom, knew the outcome of this event and felt Caradwin's eyes spring open at the calamity. When she saw what had befallen her labors, a deep fury rose within her. Her eyes observed the calamity that befell her cauldron, and she saw in the eyes of Gwion Bach that Allen was bestowed upon him. Like a dragon arising from the deepest chasms of the earth, her fury erupted.
You okay?
Yeah.
I'm just proud that you pronounced chasm correctly the second time.
That's how I said it.
You said chasm the first time. You want to go listen to the
Let's re-roll it. I'm just playing.
Oh, we will. Don't worry. I got time stamped and everything.
Gwion Bach took to the hills, and with awe and within him, he found that his shape could be changed. As a hare, the hare first again, he bounded over hill and down dale. Caradwin gave chase, her form changing to that of a greyhound. The chase continued until Gwion as a hare felt his legs heavy under the strain. A river before him compelled him to enter its waters, and as a salmon he swam through the depths. Caradwin relentlessly followed, diving as a greyhound to transform as an otter bitch. Through the world of water she pursued him, her fury rising even greater. Chasm? What's the right way to say it?
Chasm.
Oh, chasm.
Which is how you said it the second time.
Oh, okay. It's probably the effects of the frankincense.
You probably can say it both ways if you look it up in the dictionary. I just like making fun of you and your ones.
That I never can say, right? Gwion, as a salmon, looked to the surface and leapt from the water's hold. As a wren, he took to the skies, and she, as a hawk, pursued. The realms of air held the chase as the wren flew from the claws of the hawk. Beneath him, on farmland, he observed a heap of wheat and dived into its mass, instantly transforming into a single grain. But Caradwin would not surrender her chase. As a black-tufted hen, she began to peck at the grain, swallowing each one in turn until none remained. The chase was over, her fury satiated in the knowledge that Gwion Bach had been destroyed in the fires of her belly. Get in my belly. But Amwin is above all such things, and as a consequence, Caradwin found herself to be with child, whose kicking was a constant reminder of her plight, her fury, and her anger. Her son would remain ugly, and Gwion Bach would live. She vowed to kill the child upon birth and drown it in the waters of her sacred lake. I like this version much, much better.
Caradwin sounds like an amazing person.
She's a good mom. She's a good mom. The appointed day arrived, and her contractions grew strong. As her waters broke, her screams echoed through the valley. The child slivered from her womb, and her fury rose yet again. She reached for the babe in readiness to kill it, but its countenance struck her heart. The child's beauty tore her spirit into a million pieces. His eyes stared at her, and within them she could see all the magic of all the worlds. She found not a vestige of loathing for the child. It would live.
A vestige.
How do you say that one?
Nothing. Just
Tell me. I don't know. I'm from Texas. Shit. I don't know.
We got a vestige over here.
Well, that's how we would say it, a vestige. She would send the child through the realms of water and into the laps of the gods as they saw fit. Into a leather coracle, Into a leather coracle, she placed the child and set the vessel upon the sacred waters of Lake Bala. Away it sailed, and for 40 years traveled the width of Wales until caught in the weir of Gwyno Garanhir. Instead of salmon on that fateful Samhain eve, Gwydno's son Elfin found a child within the oracle. Upon unveiling the child from the depths of the leather and raising the babe aloft, a light shone from its brow, a blinding light of inspiration. Behold, the child has a radiant brow, he proclaimed. Let him henceforth be known as Taliesin, he with a radiant brow. So I like that version, the tale of the prophet, the witch, and the cauldron. So isn't Elfin the name of, or part of the name of a couple of the celebrations? Elfin.
That's different spelling. That's Albin.
Albin. Okay. Well, just kidding.
Albin Heffen.
I know it was a
summer solstice.
little different, but we did want to still have a podcast. Now I know I can at least get it running according to y'all. What happens after I get it going, that's a different story. But would you like to say anything before we sign off for the week?
No, I was just looking at, I don't know how to pronounce, I'm sure it's different than Gwydno.
Well, that's my Texan. I don't know the right wordage.
I mean, I don't either. Because things that are pronounced in Welsh and or...
this is when we need joy.
Yeah.
She knows the right
wordage. But I also
wordage.
don't trust any of these either, so it's probably not accurate. I don't know how much you talked about it, because I don't want to go on, because I know we got things to do, but...
I didn't really discuss that. I was just reading.
So the whole idea behind the stories and all the connection to shapeshifting is really about the adaptation of us as we grow and move throughout the story. And each of the animals that are in there have a really big, what's the word?
Importance.
Importance, yeah.
Significance.
Significance, that's it. I still can't hear out of my right ear, so I'm still lopsided. But yeah, so it's really important that those representations are understood, and why, when it goes into talking, for example, when she turns into the greyhound, it's talked about how dogs lead us into the underworld, and they're the keepers and the gatekeepers and assist us finding our way back. So the greyhound has special significance when the greyhound is doing the chase. The hare obviously has a lot of significance, and I don't think anybody's suggesting that there is an actual change of skin in this particular instance. It's
Right.
the astral version of the transformation that gives us new guidance, new perspective, new ideas, new experiences that we would not otherwise have, that we then bring into our new self. And that's what I think the stories ultimately talk about. Because there's a whole nother story that goes into after this of when the young babe was found, who he was found by. It's a really good man, named him Taliesin, which is the bright brow or shining brow. And then Taliesin becomes Taliesin. So I think that's kind of the importance behind the stories of understanding what that meant. And then, we talked about it in detail, which we're not going to have time to do today, and we probably should have some more discussion about it, because, for me, this has come up before. Well, this is one of my one of my very first, not the first, but one of my early decks is where I learned the story for the first time, which is the Celtic animal totems, and this was one of the stories in it, and that's one of the things for you to understand about how the animals are representative of different things in your life, and how you can shapeshift with them to experience things differently.
Yeah, man.
Really? That's all you have, Dad?
No, I just think about ways that I've shapeshifted, to get a job I want, or to, just going to work, changing skin to go to work, or within different groups, we do it a lot of times unintentionally, Hello. Hey, Susie. We're about to end. We just did a short one today because Mystic had to work, and I get to go see an herbalist for the first time. I'm excited.
Yay. And I'm tagging along.
He's coming with me. We're riding the motorcycles. So, but no, I think it does bear a topic for definitely more discussion. But
Yeah.
that's a good intro into it.
Yeah, and if you guys like copycat, I don't think we'll read 5 different versions of stories in general, but I think it'll be very an interesting idea for us to add this to kind of have some more discussions as we go through the Druidic words from the Obad, which are the lessons, and then on top of all the other things that we're learning from so many different areas, right? We'll share some of those with you as part of the service when we have more time. Also, we will be doing different engagement. So we've got, I know there's just to put out there, and some people may not even know, but I've always said we'll never have guests on the show. And what I mean by that, and I've said this way before, is I don't want people to ever come on the show to be like it's like a reader or a what's the word I'm thinking? Like having, I don't know how I want to phrase it. Guests coming on the service is not about what a typical podcast interview would be. Our goal is to bring people on the show when we can, as much as possible, and in person as much as possible, to add to the conversation. But we realize that there are quite a few people that are not close. So those individuals we are going to start asking to come on and spend some time with us on topics. So in the next couple of weeks, we have invited a few people, and we're going to be reaching out to more people to get some things set up to bring you in. We have to do it in a different setting, though, because we cannot do it with our current setup here. We have to do it through Discord, so it'll be a little bit different. You'll see us kind of in different spaces, but super excited about that coming. So There's a couple of you in the chat I reached out to, and there's a few more that I want to reach out to. So we'll be having some fun new topics on that perspective on Sundays. Like my previous thing of not having any guests on, I think some people took differently when we were talking about it. Because I said I'll never have guests on the show, but I mean like as in an interview podcast, like what we do on the Malice Experience. I don't. The service is for everybody, and so we bring new perspectives on is one thing, but it's not a, you know what I mean, highlight thing. I don't know how else to explain it. It'll make sense when we do it. Dragon Dancer, you're the next person I was going to call.
And Dragon Dancer, I want to talk more about shapeshifting.
Yeah. All right, I don't have anything else to add. We can't do tarot today. We're rushing. We got about 10 minutes till we have to leave. So we're not doing that. But what I will do is I have a deck, and I'm going to pull one card. And that one card, let's see, is Roots. Are you okay if I go put my jeans on? Yeah, bye. So the Roots card is coming from the... Okay, if your stuff keeps going in my ear, I'm about to throw it in the trash. This is from the Sacred Medicine Oracle book. I probably should have done that first. Sacred Medicine Oracle, I should say. But the card pulled is Roots, and one of the things that I find very interesting about this is that this was huge in discussion the other day. It was also really big in one of the videos that that have come up recently, and it talks about Roots, and it's also in a little video that I shared recently from Tyler Perry that is also very interesting about, you know, the people represented as leaves, as branches, and as roots, and how they're all important, but the rest die without the roots. So it's really important in this case for us to water our roots and for us to make sure that our roots are strong and they are reaching into the depths to keep us watered and keep us nurtured and to keep us connected. There's a lot of research even now showing that roots can communicate, or trees, plants communicate each other through roots. It's an interesting thing with fungus, right? They may be rhizomes or have different names, but they are ultimately roots, and the fungus can be miles and miles and miles and acres long, and be one living organism that communicates through that network. And there are instances where roots, or trees have shown, bushes have shown, plants have shown reversing the flow of their nutrients to assist other plants nearby that are not doing as well. So when you put all those things together, you think about roots as being not just the thing that brings the nutrients and the things up into us, but also that puts things back out. It holds us steady. It keeps us grounded. But without them, the organism dies. So very important. One other piece that was interesting with roots is the ability of a lot of plants to have a leaf or a stem reroot when it's put in the ground or when it's watered properly or held properly. We as humans, animals, and spiritual beings can do the same thing. We can take part of us that might be broken or not full and use that to regrow roots in different places and kind of make things work again. So that's my leaving message from the Roots. From the tarot. This is the Sacred Medicine Oracle, which I like. It is a new deck for me. Somebody else brought it, Mr. Joe, and I immediately went and got it, of course, because, you know, I'm obsessed with tarot. But anyway, we are going to go get ready to go, and yeah, that'll be that. Been a great time spending the 15 minutes I got with you. Sorry about that. I had work from remote work, of course, but I had to be on a call at 11 o'clock, so we're going to go get ready, head up to the UU in Fort Myers to do a little something and be outside. And hopefully I'll be able to hear from my right ear by the end of next week. We will see you next week, I'm pretty sure. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for stopping in, and we love you. Bye.